Hi, Kim Bonifan again with the Vintage Place Treasure Hunt. Let me show you a little treasure which most people don't know about. But in 1813, Governor Macquarie had a problem. The colony was run on rum. There were no coins around to do a proper system. So he brought 40,000 Spanish dollars into the country. Here's an example of the modern version of it. I haven't got a real one here because they're worth well over 100,000, but he cleverly pushed the centre out, which became the dump, Australia's first official coin. Now that little dump is 15 pence. He left the holy dollar at 5 shillings. Today there would be 200 left out of the 40,000. The rest were probably melted, no one really knows. And you need a good 100,000 to buy one of these. To buy one of these, this one's in fairly poor condition, maybe 1,000 of them in existence. But today the silver value, $10, but to buy this one from me or from the Vintage Place, a good $5,000. So there we have it, Australia's first coin, the dump from the holy dollar. John Martin, another treasure at the Vintage Place. John painted with people like Robert Clippell, John Olsen and John Coburn. He's been a little bit forgotten, although he had brilliant exhibitions in the 80s and earlier this century. And this painting here, in one of his exhibitions, is the Gate Vigil. It's a gateway into Sydney. You can see the Harbour Bridge, the Opera House, and the part of the gate. Now this is from his painting time in Berlin, when he was influenced by the Bauhaus school. The Bauhaus school was a school of design which stopped at the time of Nazi Germany. But here, John Martin is doing these beautiful full-size paintings, and we've found about 100 of them locked away, rolled up, brought back from Germany. Here's another example of John's work. Smaller, signed on the back, a study number 9. We've found hundreds of these locked in the garage in Turramurra. We like people to know how important an artist he was. And he was heavily influenced by the group of artists he worked in, who used to do artworks for each other. For example, behind me, the John Coburn piece is actually by John Martin, and that shows the influence and how it worked. Another smaller one of John's, there were probably 20 or 30 that went together in this series, called Kreuzberg Nocturne, done in Germany. Number 26, you can imagine how many were in that series. Now John and his artist group had galleries here in Sydney where they worked, but John had one up in the Upper Hunter Valley where he turned an old barn into a big art gallery where the friends used to go up and paint together. They'd often paint and swap articles, paintings or statues, in the case of Robert Clippell, who's probably our best known sculptor in Australia. It's a marvellous story. Here in Turramurra, now through his wife, we have access to his paintings to talk him up again and to do more exhibitions like he did in the early part of this century. Here's a bit of history in our hands. Very, very significant. We went to a house in Waitara a couple of weeks ago, helped the people moving out decide what was rare and what was not, which should be on the side of the road or which should go to Sotheby's, and we found this, a little packet from a chemist shop of photographs. So we open it up. We do open it up, there we go. Careful with the negatives, because these are original photos of Sir Charles Kingsford Smith and one of the family members flying across the opening of the Sydney Harbour Bridge in 1932. I'll read you a bit of the history at the moment, but just look at this. Original photographs, original negatives, only a week after the replica of his famous plane, the Southern Cross, landed in Sydney at Sydney Airport. Let me read you on the back of one of these. Maybe this one here is worth looking at. Here we go. Bridge opening day, 19th of March 1932. Robin family about to take off in the Southern Cross, piloted by Charles Kingsford Smith, to fly over the bridge during the opening ceremony. This is real history. You've all seen photos of it. You may have even seen the famous photo of two planes over the Harbour Bridge, including the Southern Cross. Well, that photo, by the way, was faked. Those two planes weren't in the air together. It was joined together, but it looked fantastic. This is actual history as it happened, and I can't believe that it was just sitting in Waitara for all these years. So we will probably suggest to the owner that we do limited edition reproductions of this, but more importantly, we want to see where this should end up in the history of Sir Charles Kingsford Smith, the Sydney Harbour Bridge and Sydney. A recap from last week's episode of the Vintage Place Treasure Hunt. The famous box from Premier Jack Lang with his newspapers in it may well have been purchased in the intervening week or so. We hope it'll become on show at a museum in Sydney with other dispatch boxes from famous premiers. Ironically, here we are looking at the dispatch box of Premier Lang, the very person who tried to open the Harbour Bridge when those photos were taken of Smithy flying over. Treasures at the Vintage Place. Come back and see more next time.